win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? There has been rioting in Louisville, there's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
But people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else.
To go public. Her best-selling book entitled Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. Mary Trump, who is a trained psychologist, says her uncle is deeply damaged psychologically by his father, Fred. In there, what's the most important thing, Mary, you want people to know about your uncle?
That he's unfit for the office he holds. One of my main goals in writing the book was to help people understand how long-standing and deeply ingrained his psychological issues are, and help them gain access to information that they may not have had 4 years ago when it comes time to vote again on November 3rd, 2020.
Tell me how you think your grandfather, that sort of cruelty, how it shaped Donald Trump.
So Donald watched his brother be systematically humiliated and dismantled at the hands of their father, and learned very early on and over a quite long period of time that in order to survive in my family, you couldn't be kind, you couldn't admit a mistake, you could never be wrong. All of those things were considered weakness in the Trump family.
Ask you, Mary, if I can. The president is struggling to manage this crisis, to put it mildly. Just a few days ago, again, he said the virus will just go away or will disappear. Doesn't seem to accept advice from medical experts. Is that typical for your uncle?
Yeah, he's incapable of accepting advice that contradicts his own narrative, and I think from very early on, even before this should have been a crisis, he made a decision about what he thought was more important, and at the time it was protecting the stock market from any scares it may have experienced as a result of announcing the virus. And because he's mishandled it from the beginning, he's incapable of course correcting, because that would mean he'd have to admit he was wrong, which again is admitting weakness, and he cannot do that under any circumstances.
I want to ask you about the subtitle too, Mary, of your book, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. How dangerous do you think he is?
Well, he is constitutionally unfit to wield the power that comes with the office he holds. And he has the nuclear codes, and he also is driving the response of many governors in our country to this plague, essentially, we're living through. And we see on a state-by-state basis the difference between the handling of this by certain governors, and it's it's a disaster, because there are still people out there who politically think it's to their advantage to align themselves with him, and they dare not cross him. So if he says, don't wear a mask, you shouldn't have to wear a mask, you shouldn't have to social distance, you should go back to school, that's what these governors are going to push for. And more people are going to get sick, and more people are going to die. And we're in a very dangerous place in our country and in the context of this disease that's ravaging us.
Your uncle, of course, is hoping he will be reelected. If he loses, based on what you know, do you think he will actually accept the results?
I think it depends greatly on the outcome of the election. If he loses resoundingly, then he will do his best to spin it somehow and exit stage right. If it's close, then we have a different scenario on our hands. It also depends a lot on how the people around him recommend that he handle it. So I think the best way to avoid an outcome we'll all regret is to make sure that Joe Biden wins in a landslide. We need to dive deeply into everything that's gone on, certainly in the last 3 years in this administration. He's been impeached, and that happened for a reason. So my hope is that Congress does its job after the election and not only finds out in granular detail all of the transgressions that have been made, but also makes sure that Donald and everybody else involved in them is, punished. Justice needs to be served. Just please take very seriously people's characters and their psychological makeup when making the profound decision about who you want to be leading the country. These are not things that can be taken lightly at all. And my hope is that I have shone a light on why Donald is who he is.
Tonight, I can report the sky is absolutely falling. We are all doomed. The end is near. The apocalypse is imminent, and you're going to all die. Or at least that's what the media mob would like you to think.
Yeah, I'm dead right on this. The coronavirus is the common cold, folks. The hype of this thing as a pandemic, as the Andromeda strain, as, oh my God, if you get it, you're dead.
This is one of those cases where the more I learn about coronavirus, the less concerned I am. There's a lot of hyperbole.
The national left-wing media playing up fears of the coronavirus.
The sky is falling because we have a few dozen cases of coronavirus on a cruise ship. I am far more concerned with stepping on a used heroin needle than I am getting the coronavirus, but maybe that's just me.
It's a virus like the flu. All the talk about coronavirus being so much more deadly doesn't reflect reality.
This virus should be compared to the flu because at worst case scenario, it could be the flu.
The far more deadly, more lethal threat right now is not the coronavirus. It's the ordinary old flu. People are dying right now. Nobody has died yet in the United States, as far as we know, from this disease.
That's right. And the facts are actually pretty reassuring, but you never know it watching all this stuff.
You want to know how I really feel about the coronavirus, Juan? If I get it, I'll beat it. I'm not afraid of the coronavirus, and no one else should be that afraid either.
It is very, very difficult to contract this virus.
It's milder than we thought. The fatality rate is going to drop.
So when you hear the context, it's not quite as scary.
It's actually the safest time to fly. Everyone I know that's flying right now, terminals are pretty much dead. And then the planes, remember back in the day when you had a seat next to you possibly empty, you could stretch out a little more? It's like that on every flight now.
One of the things you can do if you're healthy, you and your family, it's a great time to just go out, go to a local restaurant.
Yeah.
Likely you can get in easily.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz mocked concerns about the spread of the virus by wearing a gas mask on Capitol Hill.
When a reporter in the Capitol asked Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma, 85, what precautions he was taking, he extended his arm with confidence. Want to shake hands?
In our line of work, you shake hands. I expect the president will continue to do that. I'll continue to do it.
We have contained this. I won't say airtight, but pretty close to airtight.
It is being contained. And do you not think it's being contained?
0 people in the United States of America have died from the coronavirus. 0.
This is a flu. This is like a flu. It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. I took it very seriously.
By the way, this program has always taken the coronavirus seriously.
On why Donald is who he is and why we need to make a very serious change in America.